But anyways, thanks for being here, guys. Now that we've all seen the teaser, Mika, if we could start with you, tell us a little about what Origin is.
Well, it's about a group of people who are essentially going to a new planet in search of a fresh start, and they basically wake up in a situation where everyone else has left the ship, and that clean slate that they were trying to achieve is completely compromised. So I guess at its core it's about whether any of us can actually redefine who we are, or whether we're sort of made of something that can't really change.
Nice. Anything to add, Paul?
It's very, very scary as well.
Full of action in space.
Nice.
It's amazing.
Well, Paul, what drew you to directing the first 2 episodes?
It's the first time I've been in deep space since I did a movie Event Horizon, and I never really wanted to go out into deep space again because I thought I was really happy with that movie, and then I read Mika's script, and she persuaded me to go back out into space. And what I loved about it was that there's a lot of science fiction thriller aspects to it. It's very, very scary. It's very, very intriguing. But at its heart, it's about a series of broken people who want a fresh start. But instead of a fresh start, they wake up on this spaceship. They're alone. The crew has left them. The other settlers that are on this spaceship have gone. And these people who wanted a fresh start instead get put in a vice. And it squeezes and squeezes and squeezes and gets worse and worse for them. And we as the audience see whether these people crack or not. And I just thought that was a wonderful, wonderful character-driven basis for a television show.
It's a metaphorical vice.
Sometimes.
Thanks for that. So if we could just go down the line, starting with Tom, can you tell us who your character is?
Yes, hello. Hello, Comic-Con. 2018. It's good to see your lovely faces again. I play a chap called Logan Main, who's a bit of an American scallywag. He's not the most pleasant of chaps at times, to be honest with you, but he has a good heart. Not always the best at group activities, doesn't sort of find himself fitting into the group quite as quickly as some of them do. But a really fun character. I look forward to you guys meeting him.
So I play Lana Pierce, and she's also American, and she's, as Paul says, she is broken. I suddenly thought about it, and I think she only smiles like twice in the whole thing. Her favourite partner is a gun. She really likes guns. And yeah, she's suffering from PTSD, but again, I feel the same as you. I do think she's good inside. She's just, you know, certain circumstances have made her otherwise.
She's pretty terrifying. In a good way.
How about you, Sen?
I play Shun Kenzaki. He's an ex-Yakuza, which is a Japanese gangster. And he lives to regret some of the stuff that he's done on Earth, and he's looking to run away from all that, reinvent himself. Yeah.
How about you, Nora?
I play Evelyn Ray, and Evelyn is French, and she's an engineer, and she was recruited by the company Siren to work on the ship. And what can I tell you more about the character? She's very skillful. She's an engineer, of course. She's smart, I think. And yeah, and she has to make the very difficult decision to just leave her life behind, her father who's sick, and to make a new life on this new planet. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, and Fraser?
Hello.
Are you taking it in?
I am. You know what? I've been acting 30 years, and this is my first Comic-Con. Okay, so I play a character called Henri Gassana, and Henri is a geneticist in his daytime job. He's in the future he's kind of doing tests on DNA and looking at all the things that cause cancers and Alzheimer's and stuff like that, and trying to change the code so that we rid ourselves of these things that we have now that are killing people. And I think prior to going on the ship, he meets, let's just say, some questionable characters from a particular government and gets involved in some dark ops activities, which kind of reverse what he's been doing in not a good way. And so Henri, it doesn't end well for him, that particular experiment, and he decides that the best thing he can do is to get on the origin. And I think that's something with all of the characters, that we, in some way, shape or form, are running away from something in our past, you know, and we see this trip on origin and to the planet as a way of kind of getting rid of the past, making a new fresh start, and hopefully living happily ever after. But as you know, it never ends like that.
So Mika, hopefully there's more sound effects. But as we noticed, there's a lot of elements going on, a little bit futuristic, a lot of spaceship stuff. What time is Origin taking place in?
We're quite vigilant not to say when, but it's sort of near future, and it's, I think it's a world that we recognise, but it's significantly enough apart from us that there's faster than light travel and spaceships and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, so like a not too distant future.
Not too distant.
And Paul, what goes into sort of making that visual element, whoops, almost knocked down the mic, but almost going into making that futuristic element, sort of filming or designing the spaceship and things like that?
Well, the fascinating thing about Origin is that it's not just a TV show set on a spaceship. The structure of the show is that 60% of each episode is on board the Origin, so that involved obviously designing what we thought was quite a fresh, spectacular look for a spaceship. But also 40% of each show delves into one particular character's backstory and tells that story, tells how these people messed up their lives so bad on Earth that they're choosing to leave everything behind and go for a fresh start on a brand new planet. And that was very, very exciting for me, because you're getting to do two shows. You're getting to do the future of Earth and also the spaceship show at the same time. And we have a very multinational cast. So the first episode that we're going to show you a little chunk of later is all set in Tokyo. So I got to do futuristic Tokyo. Then with Nat, we got to do futuristic Washington, DC. We go to Ireland, we go to France. So you get to see the whole world. It's kind of global picture of the world in the future.
Nice, nice. So as you mentioned, one of the important elements of the show is that everyone's trying to travel to this new planet, Thea. So what can you tell us about Thea?
I could tell you quite a bit about it, but it might all be lies, because no one is quite certain. All these people have signed up because they want a fresh start, but the corporation that's paying for the spaceship and sending these settlers out there, you're never quite sure of their motives. It's called the Siren Corporation. And even as we were making the show, we were never quite certain whether these people were going to a certain future or not.
Yeah. So for your characters, can you speak a little as to why, without spoiling anything, they want to go to Thea in the first place?
Not really.
Not really, no.
Yeah, I think the nice thing is every character has their own motives and their own reasons. And largely speaking, it is about leaving a certain chunk of your previous life behind, but in completely different facets for everyone.
I think that's what makes it interesting, is that everyone is trying to change, but those reasons why is what is explored. So
Yes.
It's spoiling for you.
No. But to tell them on what Paul was saying now, I really thought one of the most fascinating parts of the show is when they get to go back and see each character's previous story. Largely speaking, it's in a different language, it's in a different setting, it's in a different cultural background, really. And I've never sort of seen a show do that before, so I'm really excited to see how that lands with audiences.
Yeah. To add one more country to the list, I heard you guys filmed in South Africa. How was that?
Fantastic.
That's amazing.
Cape Town is a spectacular place, yeah. Not just the look at, but also the people, the culture, and the history. And it really was.
Like the mountains,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. I mean, just and the crew are fantastic. I had such a good time with them. I made such good friends. I'm not ready.
Nice. Yeah.
Shooting in Cape Town was amazing, but we also felt really, I felt pretty lonely, to be honest with you, because I was like far away from my family, and we were all like far from our families. Some had children, but what was interesting is that the show, it's also about leaving our family behind, our life behind, so it was a great analogy for, especially there's this scene where we see Thea, the planet, for the first time. Do I talk too long? Because you're looking
no,
at me.
no, no, no.
You can tell me, you can say, just shut up, and I'll shut up. And yeah, so it was a great analogy for our situation, our real situation.
Right. And so this show's very tense. What do you guys do to have fun on set and break that sort of tension? Any like
I
practical
played with my
jokes?
dog, and everyone we just had jokes. I don't know, it's just like those little moments. Like, I was about to say backstage. What would you call it? In a little gazebo.
It wasn't that tense when we were actually making it. That was Paul's handiwork with the edit and so forth. We did have a very pleasant time.
Yeah, but if it was ever too tense, we'd just crack Harry Potter jokes.
Yeah. You had to get one in, didn't you?
Oh my god.
Can I?
Do you have a good one?
Well, no, this is a good time to probably announce that I was called Draco for the entire shoot. She even she threw a couple of spells at me in the middle of takes. I'm not joking. I gave her a green light early on, and it was to my detriment later on.
Oh god, that's amazing. Okay. So on the show, like a lot of the characters are breaking off into groups, and everyone's sort of feeling each other out at first. Is it clear sort of who are the protagonists and the antagonists, or is it always switching up during the show? Is that another part of the mystery? I guess for Mika. Or
Yeah, I think it's nice because I think at the beginning there are two quite clear antagonists. One of them is obviously Tom. And then I think as the show goes on, that just morphs and changes, and you realize the redemptive qualities they have. And I think that's all part of the theme, is about are you made of something that can't change, or can you sort of morph and adapt to your environment? So I think that's what's interesting, is sometimes you trust the characters, sometimes you don't, and it's constantly evolving.
nice.
It's like what Fraser said. It feels like. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say that what's pretty interesting in this show is that the antagonist is actually the unknown, and that makes it like even like creepier. You know what I mean?
No, just to sort of chime in on Fraser's comment that it's one team of every sort of different nationality that's constantly morphing. Constantly there's people not being trusted or not being trusted, or being kicked out, or doing the wrong thing, or making drastic actions in the hope that they're saving the day when actually they're just ballsing it up even further. Speaking from my own character there. So yeah, it sort of morphs every episode, I think.
Yeah, and one more question before we go to the audience. Just want to know if Theo was real and you had the option of going and being one of the colonizers of it, would you take that?
Only with this bunch of merry crew with me. I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
For me, I think space is terrifying, A. B, I don't know, I think there'd have to be a lot of things in place. Like, I'd have to go with a group of musicians, because we need music in mid-planet. I want coffee beans, I want vineyards, I want goats so we can have cheese. Like, a lot of things have to come into play. You'd be able to just go to beer.
You want goat's cheese? That's really scary.
Straight from the goat. How about you, Sen?
Did Tom say
sorry.
he was going? What? Oh.
Okay, we'll go Sen and Fraser.
Yeah. Did Tom say he was going?
What?
Did you say you were going?
No, I'm gone.
What, you're going? Yeah?
Wait, is this when you're basing your decision on whether
I think he said he's going if you're
I
going.
thought you meant answering the question.
No.
Okay, if you're going, I'm going. We're
I'm
in.
not going.
All right, thank you very much. What a bastard! You set me right up.
All right.
Excuse my French.
No, I was just going to say that, I mean, I think we would consider it, wouldn't we? If we suddenly became aware of a planet where there wasn't going to be any war, there wasn't any poverty, there wasn't any starvation, you know, that would be something to seriously consider. You know, if it's something that's going to be like Earth, then you would probably swerve it. You know? but if it really was no war, no poverty, no starvation, no disease, all the things that we fear on the planet at the moment, we'd probably all give it a good look.
Fair point.
But then wouldn't we take all the war and disease and all that crap that we usually do? That's the thing.
Yeah, right?
I mean,
That's season 3.
Okay, so I want time for audience questions. So I'm not sure how it's working out. If someone has, oh, there we go. Okay, so sir, what's your question?
Hey, I'm curious about how y'all approach the aesthetics for all these different cities you're going to be visiting. There seems to be like a lot of precedent for East Asian and sort of a futuristic setting, but how do you keep like the other cities familiar enough but also unique to this sort of universe?
That's a very good question. You know, that was the challenge of the show. I mean, every episode we were trying to show somewhere different, and you know, obviously Tokyo, as you can see, is very, very urban, which is kind of an extension of what Tokyo is now. But the second episode, for example, is all set in the suburbs around Washington D.C. that really looked pretty much exactly the same as they do now, because 40 years ago they looked pretty much exactly as they did right now still. So sometimes some things change, sometimes some things don't. And that was the great thing about being in South Africa as well. South Africa is an incredibly adaptable place. I mean, the locations are amazing. So we had like a really wide range of very, very striking locations to use for the futuristic settings.
All right.
Good afternoon. I'm Catherine from Mugglenet.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi. Tom's is my favorite character, but I'm so sorry, Natalia. My question's for Tom.
What's up?
So a lot of reviews for this TV show compare your character and origin to Draco Malfoy and his personality. In your experience, what are the similarities and differences of the two?
Absolutely bugger all, I'd say. I mean, one was a wizard with crap parents. The other one is a petty drug dealer from California. I really could not align those two up in any situation. And I suppose I might look somewhat similar, but
I think they're
my eyes are still the same colour, but other than that, I wouldn't really draw too much similarities. He's not the friendliest person in the world, I suppose we can say that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mugglenet.
Hi. First off, I'm Tom Felton.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you.
I was wondering, this genre's been done so many times before. Do you have any worries about like a repeat of the genre, and when you're filming the show, you're like, oh, that's too alien, or that's too much like The Thing? Does that worry you at all?
Is that to me?
No, just
It's a bloody good question for Mika.
Miko, but yes.
I don't know, I guess, I don't think so, because I think that's just like any other story of any genre you could say. Maybe it's similar to something that's come before, but I really do think the show's very original in the sense, in the structure of how every episode works. And I think because every episode is like its own film, I just think there's so many, you know, we're telling 10 different self-contained stories, so I just think every episode you'll be seeing something new. So I guess, no, not too worried.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
But also, I think piecing all those elements together is what also makes it original. Because, like you said, we're seeing so many different things. It's not just the spaceship that we see on the show.
All I can hear now is origin. No. Right? Oh, is that not one of the best
Come
dad
on.
jokes you've ever heard?
Alright, we can go with the next question.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, sure. On a scale of 1 to 10, how intense / scary is this series going to be? Because I couldn't handle that.
And a half.
It's a solid 7.5.
I got one more if we got time.
Alright.
So you say you did filming in Cape Town. I realize that there's a water crisis going on there right now, so how did you handle that?
Nice segue. Yeah.
It's actually much better now. When we first got there, there's just things like you have to, use a bucket for your shower water. I mean, I live on a canal boat, so for me it was actually quite an easy transition because you really do conserve water a lot when you live there because you have to then fill it up, and that's a mission. But yeah, when I was on my way there, all my friends were texting me going, "You're going to die," and then it was actually all right. It's weird.
Yeah, you do pick up some bad habits though, because you're only supposed to flush number 2s.
Oh yeah.
And when you leave Cape Town, you go back to wherever.
And you end up.
Stinks.
But also...
And so yeah, that's my apology to the hotel.
It's room 219 and No, but also some good habits. I don't know about you, but I can't hear a tap running now without feeling the need to turn it off because it's just wasting water.
And you drink a lot of Fanta and Coca-Cola and yeah.
Nice. So we got a new wave of questions. What's your question?
Yeah, I saw that there seemed to be practical effects as well as CG effects, and I really appreciate that. And I was wondering, for producers especially, what's the design of balancing that and finding the scariness of practical versus the really interesting futurism of the visual.
I mean, we tried to build as much as possible. So the sets we built, we actually took over 2 studios in Cape Town to build the interior of the spaceship. So it was quite labyrinthine, and I think it was good for the actors that they had a real environment to interact with. There were no kind of scenes where people were just standing against the blue screen trying to imagine what it looks like. So we try, and even in kind of Tokyo, we tried to build as much as possible. So thank you very much, YouTube, for giving us all that cash. But that was our approach. If we could do it practical, we tried to.
Awesome. Cool.
We have time for one more question.
Hit it.
As actors in a science fiction show, did you do any unusual research for your role?
I was on YouTube. I'm not just saying. I'm not just saying that. Actually, I think Henri ends up doing a lot of stuff related to the brain, and if you type in what is an occipital lobe, then somehow YouTube's got the answer. So. And then you've got frontal lobes, and you've got, all these different lobes of the brain. And then when you want to find out how to actually get into the brain, it's on YouTube. It's just it's a fact. You can find whatever the hell you want on YouTube.
On YouTube. Here we go.
Yeah, I made research shows about planets, and I discovered that there is a planet called Theia, right? Yeah. So that was a great discovery.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Of course.
All right. Well,
thank you.
Yeah, no, I YouTubed how to be a badass.
What? Okay. So thank you guys for coming. That about wraps the Origin panel. I hope you enjoyed.
Thank you so much.
From San Diego Comic-Con, you better click right here in this box, and also please subscribe because we do things like this and dress up for you.